Mel, I'm sorry, I'm having a problem here. I'm not getting audio. Just a second.
Okay.
Okay, do you want to start over?
Yeah.
Okay. And the animation.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Metaworld News for the week ending 17th of September 2017. This bulletin really just brings you highlights from the world of virtuality interfacing, and more importantly, news from social virtual worlds, which is our forte, as it were. In particular, the hypergrid, which is the transport system between independent worlds using open simulator software. Okay, now you can find a news stream from me at Twitter or twitter.com/malburns. That's MALBURNS. We have an additional one for this show at twitter.com/metaworldnews, or one word. And if you missed the links that I'm reading out here, then all you have to do is go to one of those feeds and you're able to click on the links for the articles in question. Starting off with a post a week ago at Forbes magazine, or it's a newspaper, I'm not quite sure. They had an article on virtual reality startup uses the psychology of gaming to do battle with cancer. Quite interesting here. A lot of medical sort of stuff in virtuality these days, and anything that does battle with cancer is a good thing. So you can find out more about that at Forbes. Voicesofvr.com, number 575 of their podcast, which is almost daily, using virtuality to connect with the nature of beauty with Marshmallow Laser Feast. This is a very particular thing, although it was rather an interesting podcast. It's anything that actually tries to merge technology with actual nature is worthy of a ping from me, so to speak. Right, digital trends reports. This is 5 days ago. These crazy headphones let you record immersive 3D soundscapes anywhere. This actually, I rather like the look of. These are regular headphones that function with a kind of surround sound, feature. And obviously, what you're listening to could be 3D, world sound effects along with the world you're viewing. But they also allowed you to record. So let's say I want some wonderful bird sounds for my region here. I could actually go out into the woods in real life, as it were, and put these headphones on and wander around and actually record the audio sort of fading in and out from different camera angles around me, as if as I would be moving around the woods. And then, of course, I could upload that sound file and create an ambient soundtrack for a woody region. Yes, indeed. Anyway, so that's quite nice. Digital Trends has the article on that. Virtuality-news.net. Why so many doubters riding the VR hype cycle? They're actually looking at the situation of the hype cycle, especially for VR hardware, all the fuss about it. But why so many doubters? Again, it's probably back to the issue of consumer take-up. Not particularly good. Commercial take-up, surprisingly good, oddly enough. Voices of VR 576, which is the next one in the week, studying anorexia nervosa with VR self-avatars. Is body image a matter of perception or attitude? So again, they're looking at anorexia nervosa sufferers and using avatars to study basically some of the causes for it. Right. All these other ones are recent. Right, 2 days ago. Masterpiece VR lets four people paint and sculpt together in VR. This is posted at vrscout.com. You've probably heard of these 3D paint apps and things like Tilt Brush that work with Oculus. They're basically sculpting painting environments that you actually use while you're in a 3D headset, and you paint with your hands rather than your mouse or whatever. Masterpiece VR, however, is quite interesting because it brings that concept to actual shared spaces. In other words, I don't know, say you're a sculptor and you're working with a painter, kind of artist, and there's four of you on a team that are putting something together. Up to four of you can use Masterpiece VR and actually create 3D content in the same virtual space using headsets and virtual tactile haptic facilities. Right, Greenland Melting. That post, by the way, was vrscout.com. I don't know whether I mentioned it. vrscout.com also has another post on Greenland Melting. This is a VR project that is using VR to shine a light on global warming. Another worthy thing for VR to be being used for. The American broadcaster PBS is actually funded this film, and it's looking at the gradual melting of the Arctic. Ice in the Arctic. DMLcentral.net. That's all one word. DML, then the word central together. .net. Why museums should dive into VR? Basically, it's just a rationale. Obviously, museums tend to keep to exhibit things for posterity and stuff like that. And when it comes to archaeology and all sorts of things that, a museum can show a relic, but if the relic can be recreated in virtual reality, then that becomes part of the exhibit in the museum. It makes sense, really. So that's presumably why museums are diving into VR. Okay, journals.tdl.org. This is a PDF file. Okay, in fact, I can't tell you what this is anyway. This is actually an editorial called The Recursive Relationship Between Virtual and Real in Relationships. Yeah, there's a bit of a convoluted title, and they've used the same word twice. It's just not good grammar. Anyway, this is the editorial page of the new Journal for Virtual Worlds journal that was out this week. If you go to journals.tdl.org, you'll get to that article, but there's a link there that just takes you back to all the other PDFs that are part of the issue. And the issue's focus is on the merging of virtual relationships with real relationships. Right, blog.immersed.team. Yes, I didn't know there was a web prefix, suffix called team, but obviously there is. So it's blog.immersed, the ED on the end, .team. And their post is entitled Restructuring Civilization with Virtual Reality. Now there's a handful for you. Anyway, just interesting sort of analysis piece and stuff like that. I've got a feeling that might have actually come via Medium, as opposed to but that link is good anyway. So that's it from the Mal Burns feed, and I'm now moving straight across to our Metaworld news feed to see if there's anything else here that's of great use. Modemworld.me, this is an Arapace blog, modemworld.me. She writes a lot about Linden Labs and that whole place called Second Life. But she, like many Second Life bloggers, are also focusing a little bit on Linden Labs' new platform, Sansar. visiting locations and sort of reporting it on them all. And this post that I've got up right now is called Catching a Little Zen in Sansar. Now, you may remember we have talked about Sansar a little bit here and on other shows. The Zen Garden in Sansar is one of the experiences produced by Sansar Studios at Linden Lab, and it's been one of the more frequented locations visitor-wise. And she says one of the reasons for this has possibly been because Zen Garden has opportunities for interaction with things in the scene, particularly for headsets and controllers. And of course, one of the criticisms of Sansar is that you can't actually do much in half the places, whereas Zen Garden actually has a little bit more you can actually do, so to speak. Okay. But the world, a closed world into itself, really, there. Right, Future Lab and Fairies. That's this week's post from Thursday Ember at hgsafari.blogspot.com. And basically looking at the locations the Safari visited this week. The Fairies bit is the second venue, which was a kind of welcome back party for Sunbeam Magic, who's been away for a little while. And the Future Lab was the first destination that week. You can find out more about all of it at hgsafari.blogspot.com. I wrote there's another post there giving you the details, but I'm not going to post that because reading the first one will give you the details. Upgrades on Franco Grid's Festavi, not to be confused with Avatar Fest, posted a couple of days ago. This is from Austin Tate's blog, and let me see. Well, basically, he's been there and taken the tour, and he's helping promote it. You may have to get that from the Metaworld news feed at Twitter, because it's not showing a direct link here. It's only showing one of those Tico and 1,000 number links. So I'm not going to read that out to you. Thursday Ember again at hgsafari.blogspot.com had an extra little post at the beginning of the week. What I learned from Miney. She's referring to an avatar called Mine There Always. And, basically things she learned from this avatar. So it's a little sort of bit of background stuff from Thursday, including a bit on Visions magazine and Cornflakes Week parties and various things. And that seems to be it. Yeah, so short week on news here. I'm just going to, before handing over to James, I'm just going to quickly my post at Google+. Conference.opensimulator.org. That's a bit of a handful, of course, but this is the site for the OSCC, the OpenSim Community Convention, conference rather. And the call for proposals for them has gone out this week. You'll find that at the site, but the main site, conference.opensimulator.org, has all the announcements about the dates and what you can do so far, so to speak. And there is a call out for volunteers. And if you're watching this channel on the hour, this week's Inworld review will be having a chat with Rhiannon Chatnoir, who is of Avacon, of course, but also kind of the lead in the OSCC organisers. And all the other things there are replays of last week's shows. So there you go. Okay, I think we're done. So James, anything interesting on the developer front?
Yeah, hi Mel. I did attend the OpenSim developers office hours on Tuesday, and it was actually a good discussion. There were a little more than 10 people there, and really it focused on what is adoption of version 0.9 of the code that was, as you know, recently released. And a pretty big milestone for the development. And a couple of the people there said they had upgraded their grids. They're working on seeing how that's affecting things. And one of the, I think, standout comments was someone noticed a slight stutter on sim crossings again, and this was with the bullet sim, I believe. And
Right.
then another one, boats having crossing issues in UB-ODE. And so actually Upit Umarov is there who maintains that physics, and he said there'll be a post fix coming for that soon. So now that it's in production, you know, the version 0.9 is in the bug fix mode, and so there'll be some patches to that coming out. And so um, I think, you know, I was really pretty much impressed that you know, people are getting to it. Some of the bigger grids, of course, like Kitely has to do a significant amount of testing before they would implement something like that. So that's
Yeah.
coming out. But yeah, just I think still lots of work going on in the code, and but I think people are in general glad to have this version released. And that's about it for my notes this time.
Yeah. Okay, you've actually reminded me there was a post from Hypergrid Business earlier in the week, which for some reason isn't in my feed. If you go to hypergridbusiness.org, I think it is, isn't it? The usual one. There is a post there. It's actually David, and the headline, I think, related to the new version of OpenSim, but I've actually realized that a lot of the Hypergrid Business posts now are actually not going up as individual posts. They're going up as kind of paragraph chapters of whatever the last post was. So you go to this thing and then you read down, you know, a whole load of articles for the week, and they're not separate posts. They're all in one page. So go figure out what they're doing with that. But of note actually was a third at Outworlds. So I think it was sort of nearing a couple of hundred of the Outworlds installs that a lot of people use for self-hosting regions have actually moved to the '09 version of OpenSim. Although oddly enough, of those, only about 22 are public hypergrid grids that have actually moved. I may have got my facts wrong here. So it seems to be, you know, moving to the new version seems to be very popular. But oddly enough, amongst grids that actually aren't on the hypergrid, in other words, they're running locally and they're not enabled for the hypergrid.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So presumably they're the ones that are fiddling and making sure if it works offline, then maybe it's going to work online too.
Right.
So
Yep.
there we go. Yeah. Otherwise, so most of the reports coming in seem to be good, but I haven't really seen any major reports from grids, for example, Canada or anything like that, specifying that they're updating or anything like that. The Great Canadian Grid, which is back online after a major backup, are implementing new high-speed servers and new code and everything else, and they don't say it by name, but one suspects that their variation on the code is also going to be updated to '09. One would have to speak to Terry Ford to be sure of what that's about. So clearly, you know, if it's reliable and functional, basically the commercial grids in their own time, like Kitely, as you said, will presumably deploy it. Okay, well, that's it. It's a wrap for this week. Fairly short news there. We're going to get ready to bring you Inworld review in about half an hour's time. So until next week, when we will be back with another bulletin, have a good week. And that's it from me, and that's it from James too, isn't it?
That's right. Yep.
Okay, everybody. Bye for now. Have a good week.